Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. It's a really lovely group of attendees on this Zoom this morning. Just give it another minute to allow people to join, and then we'll get started. Okay, I'll get started. As I said, thanks for joining. I'm going to click on over to my presentation. Unfortunately, I can't see or hear you this morning, so there will be an opportunity to ask questions. Please pop them in the Q&A and we'll get to them at the end of the session. But welcome to this presentation. It's great to be able to join live together while we're all in lockdown, or most of us are. This presentation is something put together by myself and the team here at We Are Social, called What the Future Social 2021. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Suzie Shaw. I'm the Managing Director of We Are Social, and you can find me across the internet at Suzie Shaw if you want to direct any questions after the presentation. Again, for those who don't know us, we're a socially led creative agency. We're part of the world's largest social specialist network. What we do is we help to build modern brands, and we do that by trying to maximize their cultural impact. Traditionally, we publish a lot of thought leadership that you can find across the internet, everything from deep dives into things like influencer marketing, Gen Z and other age cohorts, as well as our regular publishing of the Global Digital Report, as well as editions like Digital Australia 2021 that you can find on the internet all for free. So, as promised, today's presentation is going to be about the 6 key trends that we see as shaping social at the moment, and things that we really think that marketers and brands need to be aware of and leaning into in order to stay at the forefront of what's going on in social. So what I'm going to talk through today are these 6 things. Not all of them are clear and present now, but they're things that we think that people need to be tuning into in order to be prepared for what's coming down the line. Number 1, gaming we see as the next frontier in social. Number 2, a new era of social commerce. Number 3, TikTok is now a mainstream channel, but it's a unique channel and needs to be well understood to make the most of it. 4, a really interesting content trend that we've seen emerging and very effective at engaging Gen Z that we're calling edutainment. The rise of social audio, and finally, social buzz as a key indicator and driver of corporate value. I'm going to touch on each of these at quite a high level because we're covering 6 in about 35 minutes this morning. I could probably do a 35-minute presentation on any one of them, but if there's something here that you're interested in and you'd like to know more about, we'd be very happy to have a chat after and talk to you more about how it could be relevant to you, your brand, or your client. So first up, gaming, the next frontier in social. So gaming offers brands a really huge and diverse market opportunity. Firstly, in terms of audience, huge in terms of scale. There's about 2.7 billion gamers last year, which is equivalent to the size of the Facebook and Instagram audiences combined. In terms of scale of revenue, it's worth about $180 billion last year, which is larger than sports and film combined. And whilst there's a big audience there and they're investing a lot of money in their passion of gaming, they're also very receptive to brands. So Twitch, which is the most popular streaming platform for gaming, about 80% of users say that they will welcome brands sponsoring specific games and tournaments. So just indicative of that appetite there to have brands in the space, as long as it's done well. Here in Australia, gaming, again, is a really large audience, again, almost as big as Facebook. So 75% of all Australian internet users are playing games at least an hour a day, and 90% of all Australian homes have at least one gaming device. And perhaps the biggest misconception about gamers is the demographic, or the who they are. I think the stereotype of it being a gamer being a young teenage male sitting alone in their bedroom is very much outdated. So the average Australian gamer is 34 years old, 47% of Australian gamers are female, 42% of all Australians aged over 65 play games, and 59% of Australian parents play games with their kids. They game for many different reasons, everything from to have fun, relax, pass the time for the challenge, but especially interesting, and where we think this is indicating the new frontier of social, is it's about socializing with friends. And for many, that social experience is really at the heart of gameplay, or why they turn up on the different platforms and in the metaverse to experience a gaming experience. So 31% of all gamers say they look for unique social experiences and content that's not necessarily related to play. And again, Twitch, which we've talked about as this mass social streaming platform, has 140 million global monthly active users. So really big experience of people coming together in gaming environments just to connect and socialize. As a result, gaming has become a really popular way to socialize. And these are just 3 examples of big platforms that make up what you may have heard the term the metaverse. So for example, Roblox, which has got nearly 200 monthly active users. Roblox is a platform that hosts a whole myriad of different sorts of games that people can go into and connect and collaborate with friends and people they've met through the game. So all sorts of different experiences, from doing things like co-listening to UGC music that may have been made, or dancing, and all sorts of games. Again, Fortnite is 80 million monthly active users. Anyone who's got a teenage boy will be very familiar with Fortnite. But it offers a lot of opportunities for self-expression, and it's especially about collaborating and uniting to create join teams and undertake challenges. And then again, Minecraft, again, a very collaborative experience of people building worlds collectively and together. As a result, gaming is really impacting every corner of culture, from music, TV and film, sports, entertainment, fashion, food, etc. And that is putting social gaming at the heart. It's putting gaming at the heart of social conversation. So people are spending a lot of time doing it. They're connecting with friends and people they've met through gaming platforms on the internet, and it's driving a lot of social conversation. And here are a couple of examples in the last year where AOC, who's a big Twitch user, crashed into an online game of Among Us last year in order to really connect with her constituency and as part of her voter outreach in the run-up to last year's election. Again, high-profile Brie Larson, the actress, is a huge Super Mario fan and is regularly chatting with fans about her love of gaming. So they're just 2 very high-profile examples, but it's really indicating that people are spending a lot of time doing it and a lot of time talking about it. And it's just underlining the opportunity that brands have to be at the heart of some of those social conversations. A game is not one thing, it's a really rich ecosystem of different platforms and environments that brands can tap into in order to activate amongst their audience. So there are different types of games, some that are more social and open, and others that are more gated and solo. And it's all supported by an infrastructure of different platforms that connect audiences online, from streaming through things like Twitch and YouTube, right through to those platforms that enable more conversation and connection like Twitter and Discord and Reddit. There are 4 key reasons that we think it's a really prime opportunity for brands. Number 1, it commands a longer attention span than many other media environments. So you will have heard in recent years about our attention spans becoming shorter, particularly for commercial content. It's down now from the average of 12 seconds to 8 seconds a day, in contrast to gaming, where people are spending more and more time in the gaming environment. So the average time spent per day is 2.5 hours for gaming experiences, which is creeping up and competing with platforms like Netflix, which is actually 3.2 hours a day. So people spending a long amount of time doing gaming. It also captures, while they are spending a lot of time doing it, a really hyper engaged audience. So they have limited distractions when they're playing, and they're repetitive gaming cycles. So they're highly engaged in the activity. And the environments offer really immersive communal experiences within games for brands to natively integrate and be part of those immersive experiences within games. Number 3, it offers enormous flex for creativity for brands. So these are just a few examples, from being able to create branded digital merchandise, branded games, that esports sponsorship, or even connecting with gaming influencers. Of course, there's some very large gaming influencers, as there are in any interest vertical today. But all of these are opportunities and ways that brands can integrate into the gaming environment in really interesting, creative ways. And finally, all those things sort of combine to enable brands to really maximize their cultural relevance. There's a couple of examples here. Number one, Wendy's have done a lot of great stuff in the gaming environment, but there's one particular example of them connecting with Fortnite and generating huge volume of conversation through their activation. And then perhaps you'll be familiar with Lil Nas X, who was probably one of the first artists to break through on TikTok. We're going to talk about him a little bit later, but he did a live performance inside Roblox and generated 33 million visits, paving the way for a more sort of immersive and engaging live music experience. So huge opportunity, but brands really need to activate in a way that is native to the gaming environment, to be embraced by gaming communities, because within these communities, they are different. They're not all the same. And there are different languages that exist in the different gaming communities, and also a code of conduct. And as a general rule, brands need to make sure they're getting out of the way of the game, not in the way of it, and also adding to the gaming experience. So I'm just going to share 4 very brief examples of brands who we think have done a great job of making the most of integrating into gaming. Number one, our team in France a couple of years back partnered with the World Wildlife Fund to raise awareness of climate change by creating a bespoke branded challenge within Fortnite, which was a no build challenge. So the game is generally about building things and doing these battles. And in the no build challenge, people were challenged to not exploit any natural resources, so no wood, no steel, and so on. They partnered with a whole lot of gaming influencers to conduct these no build challenges, and generated huge publicity, a huge online engagement, and huge online conversation. Another example, which is a great one, KFC have been very strategic about their integration and activation within gaming, because they recognize that a huge portion of their audience is spending a lot of time gaming, and it's a very strong interest area, in the same way that brands like Coca-Cola might sponsor a sports team or tournament. A KFC could recognize that their audience were very engaged in gaming. And also, while they're gaming, there's a big occasion for them. People are eating while they're gaming. So they've had this long-term strategy of aligning with gaming and activating in the space. So they've been sponsoring a League of Legends tournament since 2015, created a great AI companion to some League of Legends tournaments, and also they've created bespoke social channels for their gaming audience, and it's positioned them really well with that audience, really strong engagement and high awareness and affinity for the brand alongside those gamers. Another great example, very tactical but an interesting way of tackling a PR disaster that occurred for Subway, who found that a conversation was emerging on the internet where people were questioning whether there was any tuna at all in their tuna sandwiches, and sort of suggesting that it was fake meat and who knew what it was, and it was undermining the credibility of their food quality. And so they regained control of the narrative by partnering with the game Animal Crossing, where in that game there's a game where you can actually catch tuna. So you can see on the right a post that ignited this activation for them that says, "Attention tuna lovers, it's time to catch yourself a free sub. To celebrate the fact our tuna is 100% pole and line caught, we've got a challenge for you. Catch a tuna in Animal Crossing. Show us with hashtag tuna for tuna and get yourself a free tuna sub. Oh yes." So they did a really great job of regaining control of that narrative and talking very directly to the audience that they wanted to influence, rather than having to rely on the media and some of the conversation that was creeping up on them. And this was very successful, again, at generating a lot of positive publicity and conversation in support of their key message about 100% pole and line caught. And finally, Gucci, who are generally at the forefront of all things cultural cool these days, they've activated across a number of different gaming platforms to really integrate digital product into these platforms. So there are examples of them activating on Roblox, Zapito, which is an app where you can upload a photo of yourself and it turns it into an emoji that you can use across the internet and in social media, and Pokemon Go. So they're really reaching this next generation of luxury consumers by integrating their product into the metaverse and into the worlds and environments where they're in, and enabling these new consumers to play with the brand and experience it as a sort of gateway into becoming the next generation of consumers for them. So in summary, gaming is a really mass market pursuit. It's bigger than sport and film combined. It's become a popular way to socialize. This is one of the key drivers of gaming's adoption across most demographics. Many brands should be considering how to use gaming to reach and engage an audience in an innovative way. And this can range from a long-term engagement strategy to more short-term tactical initiatives that might be great at really helping you dramatize the message you want to land with your audience. Number two, the new era of social commerce. So you're probably all familiar with being able to shop inside of Instagram, but this is a real growth corridor for many brands, particularly those who are direct to consumer. So global social commerce market is expected to grow over 30% per year for the next 6 years and is estimated to be worth over $600 billion by 2027. And the key reasons for this, particularly starting at home in Australia, is that we spend a lot of time on social media. So a third of all Australians' time spent online is actually spent on social media. So it's no surprise that then is leading us to think about doing things like shopping while we're spending time on social. In fact, social is now one of the key channels for new brand discovery. You can see from this table, which is from our digital report list, the sources of new brand discovery 3 and 4 as being key, social media being a key driver of those. So number 1, word of mouth recommendations, which, as you know, are largely driven by and on social media, and number 4 is ads on social media. So it's just a core source of new brand discovery, and particularly for Gen Z, search on social is the number 1 source of new brand discovery and information about products and services. They're going directly to social media rather than core search today. Additionally, there's been huge innovation by platforms in terms of social commerce. So essentially converting social channels into retail environments. You'll have seen recently TikTok announcing an integration of Shopify into their platform so that it's enabling that shopping directly from the platform, much like what we've seen in Instagram more recently. And these trends have all combined to create a very frictionless shopping experience for consumers. So we're all aware that social media has really challenged traditional media channels, and people like influencers have become the new school of publishers, and they've taken a lot of share away from the more traditional channels like magazines, where people used to go for inspiration. But the great thing about social commerce is that not only are they able to be inspired via social, but they're able to shop directly off the page. Success in this space is really driven by a range of techniques, from shoppable video formats, which is an evolution from those sort of static shopping pages. So you can see that brands are able to really bring specific features and benefits to life, and enabling people to directly shop from the page. And additionally, one of the things that we think is potentially most interesting is that it enables brands to really use influencers as sales agents, not just brand ambassadors. So when influencers came to rise, going back, say, 5 years ago, they were much more operating as brand ambassadors. They were natively advocating for brands, and often in a very subtle way. They were averse to sort of direct selling, whereas now with the culture shifting and making it more sort of culturally acceptable, particularly to Gen Z, who not only are comfortable with the transparency around that relationship, they expect it. And obviously with all the codes of conduct that exist where influencers are having to declare their relationship with brands, it's very important for them to make clear that they are being paid and advocating directly on behalf of brands. But also technology has been introduced that enables them to very seamlessly sell on behalf of the brand. So there's a great piece of technology like To Know, which is a platform that connects brands and influencers and enables them to sell directly from their channels. So they are becoming not just advocates, but really important sales channels for many brands. And brands are becoming a big source of revenue for them if they are able to directly sell on behalf of the brand. And finally, live streams are becoming a really great way to drive participation and interest in key product events, whether that's activating things like Black Friday or a key product launch. This is an example from Tommy Hilfiger, where they partnered up with some key influencers and talked about the new product range that was launching, and audiences could shop live from the range using that QR code on the right. So in summary, key social trends have combined to enable a frictionless shopping experience, which is a huge opportunity for brands. Social is no longer just supporting product sales. Social channels are now marketplaces that sit at the heart of a sales growth strategy. And as part of this, it's now normal for influencers to use their channels to actively promote and sell products on behalf of companies. And in our view, not embracing this opportunity can put brands at a competitive disadvantage, because it's no longer the case that having a big bricks and mortar retail footprint is an advantage if your competitors are actually reaching their audience and your audience via social channels, which can enable exponential increase in your sales footprint. Number 3, TikTok. It's now a mainstream channel, but it is unique and needs to be well understood if you're going to create an impact and really master use of the channel. So for those who may have been living under a rock and don't know what TikTok is, it's a very entertaining mobile short form UGC video app that contains a whole lot of different sorts of content, from comedy sketches to lip syncing, dance trends, visual transitions, and more increasingly how-to videos and so on. And its popularity isn't new news. It's created a huge buzz since it launched 5 years ago out of the Chinese app Douyin. But what is new news is it's now absolutely a mainstream channel. The penetration in Australia has grown 400% since the start of 2020 to having now 6.6 million monthly active users. And it's no longer just a dance or lip syncing app for kids. It is absolutely becoming mainstream. The biggest age cohort using the channel are Gen Z with 41% penetration, and the next largest age cohort is 25 to 34 at 24%, and it's aging up every day. You can see here on this table that it's now bigger than many major platforms in Australia and only just sitting behind Instagram there, so larger than Snapchat, Twitter, and so on. Perhaps what's most interesting though, in addition to that large penetration, so it's continuing to grow very rapidly. In July alone, it had 63 million downloads, making it the world's most downloaded non-gaming app. But perhaps the most impressive thing is the amount of time that people are using it. So the average Australian uses the app 88 minutes a day and opens the app 18 times. So they're spending a lot of time on TikTok, and anyone who's got a teenager like I do can attest to those stats. And one of the things that makes it very interesting for brands is that it has unparalleled organic reach. So you can see there it's over 100%, which dwarfs some of the mainstream platforms that are just single digits there. And the reason for that, of course, is that people don't necessarily follow other people to receive their content. Content is just served up to them. And so the algorithm has gotten really good at understanding what sort of content you might enjoy and just serves it up to you. You don't need to follow it. So good content will find an audience, and the more the algorithm believes that content is good and liked and enjoyed and engaged with, it'll serve it up to more and more people. But TikTok is very different. It's part of a new age where social is dramatically impacting culture. So it's just a couple of examples here. In fact, I think we feel it's increasing where culture is born and spread today. It's a couple of examples here. As I mentioned, Lil Nas X earlier, he was one of the first really mainstream big new music artists to break on TikTok with his hit Old Town Road, and is now a chart-topping success. But it's also been used in things like politics. So last year, in the heat of the US election, the BTS, the Korean K-pop band BTS, really rallied their fans around, or the BTS army, sorry, I should say it wasn't BTS, really rallied around trying to punk Trump with the Tulsa rally, and they ordered up tickets to the rally, and Trump, assuming they'd sold over or booked over 1 million tickets, had only 6,000 attendees at the rally. So it was a really great way for Gen Z to take control of that situation and show Trump what they thought of him. And I think, in our view, it's the playfulness of TikTok that really provides relief from the pressure to live a picture-perfect lifestyle that existed on social media historically, that has given rise to it and made it very popular. So it became especially popular last year, 2020, in the thick of global lockdowns, where so many people, and especially influencers, were at home, locked in their house and not able to look like they were living their best life. So they were engaging in more fun and playful experiences. They were able to connect via TikTok because it did have this high organic reach. And this new culture, a new era of social media has emerged that is much more participative, much more playful, and much more fun. And the collaborative culture of TikTok is really what drives the virality and engagement. So historically on social media, there was pressure to create original content and have an aesthetic that was your own and unique. And you were having to create new and different content all the time. Whereas TikTok is really about seeing something you like, iterating, copying, sharing, and it's almost about participating in trends more than it is about projecting anything specific about yourself. It's much more playful and in fact much more ephemeral. As a result, it's created, all of these trends has meant that it's created a space for new and different niches and subcultures to thrive. So all these subcultures that perhaps didn't have a way of finding their audience historically, or people who existed in a subculture didn't have a mechanism for connecting with people like them, whereas the algorithm, which does enable people to find content that they're interested in, even if they don't know those people, has enabled these subcultures to connect and thrive. So subcultures like cottagecore or witch talk or e-girl, they're connecting and becoming really powerful subcultures and communities. But to succeed on TikTok, brands really must understand that this is a unique environment and you need to create bespoke content for TikTok in order to have an impact and for the channel to thrive. And this is an example of some of the work we do with our wonderful clients over at Red Bull, because people are looking for content that is, as we said, more playful and more native to the platform. So just syndicating off your other channels isn't really going to do the job. But the good news is that brands don't necessarily need to have an owned channel to have a presence or create an impact on TikTok. So here's a couple of examples of campaigns that we've developed in the last 6 months on behalf of clients that we work with. So with Samsung, we created a branded hashtag challenge called the Video Snap Challenge, which was dramatizing a product feature of one of their new devices, the S21. And the campaign overall, with the help and support of some really great influencers globally, has generated over 33 billion views. Another campaign we did with KO, which was really great fun, was Amplify a campaign they developed above the line. And we used the duet feature to create the KO housemate, which again got nearly 10 million views. So in summary, TikTok's evolution into a mainstream channel means that all brands should now consider it within their media mix. Brands can't use a one-size-fits-all creative, however, across all platforms. You need bespoke content, and it's essential to maximize your effectiveness on TikTok. And TikTok's range of paid media formats, and there are many more than those couple I showed you, plus the central role of influencers, means that brands don't have to maintain an owned channel to have a presence. Number 4, this content trend that we think is very interesting, called we're calling it edutainment. Particularly great at engaging Gen Z, but also has strong appeal amongst a number of age cohorts. And one of the things that's very interesting that we see about this edutainment style content is it's often evergreen and has a long shelf life, which can make it another reason it's interesting for brands to explore. But we want to talk about it specifically in relation to Gen Z. The reason we think it's very popular with Gen Z is that they're the most entrepreneurial generation, more so than generations that have come before. So 45% of Gen Z describe themselves as ambitious, and nearly 40% say they would describe themselves as career focused. So both those statements far more strongly than any other generation before them. And as a result of this entrepreneurialism, it means that these young people are going to have more jobs and more careers than generations before. So estimated as having 17 or 18 jobs in their lifetime and 7 different careers. And as a result, they're hungry for information, knowledge, and skills. And they were also born with a device in their hand. They've been conditioned to go to their device to answer any question, learn any skill. And then the cohort that is most likely to have bought a new device in the since last year, and also say that they're using their device more as a result of the pandemic. And yet they've been brought up with this device in their hand, knowing that any question they might have with a few keystrokes, they can get an answer. And here's a great example of an 8-year-old that learns to drive on YouTube and head straight to McDonald's. So this generation use social, and especially YouTube, as a learning tool. So 80% of Gen Z say they use YouTube. They've used YouTube to help them learn more about a subject. 68% of Gen Z say YouTube has given them skills to help them in the future. And in the last year, we've seen a 65% increase in the watch time of how-to videos. So this edutainment style content is really relevant to this audience and adds a lot of value to their lives. And we're seeing it is growing in popularity on both TikTok and YouTube. And as I said, a lot of that content is evergreen. Here's just a few fun examples. So first of all, because we think any brand could be thinking about educating their audience in things that they want them to know. Either you've got a story that you want to educate people about, or you want to engage them, and educating them as part of that, done in an entertaining way, is a really great way of driving that engagement. This is an example of Axe, the body spray brand, using a public service style announcement to promote getting vaccinated, so suggesting it will make you more hot. The Cash App, the payment device, has partnered with Megan Thee Stallion to provide investment advice for hotties. So a really fun way of engaging that audience who are interested in finances, but it just needs to be wrapped up in an engaging way. This is a campaign we developed for Samsung a few years ago called the Samsung Sessions, which we did partnering with some really talented influencers who were fantastic at using their tech to teach brand fans how to discover new ways of using the tech for themselves. So everything from low light photography right through to time lapse and so on. And we created these great videos that became their evergreen YouTube content to engage audiences, and particularly to show up in search when they were trying to learn about how to master mobile photography. And finally, a really great example out of the UK, the English Heritage, which is the charity that maintains heritage properties, who are constantly looking for new ways to make the brand relevant to new audiences. They tapped into great trends around makeup tutorials and cooking tutorials, which were very popular, to teach people how to do things the Victorian way. And some of these videos have had millions and millions of views. So people watching stories about how to make Victorian food and creating that relationship and affinity with the English Heritage, which historically has been seen as a very dusty old brand for old people, but they're really effective in bringing in a younger audience now through this edutainment style content. So in summary, any subject can be framed as entertainment with the right creative treatment. This gives brands enormous scope to create entertaining content that's relevant and adds value to people's lives. And this content can be evergreen, living well beyond a single campaign to continually reach new users via online searches. Number 5, we're nearly there. We're going to talk about the rise of social audio. You may have heard of Clubhouse, but if not, what is it? It's I talk about this because Clubhouse is probably the first app to really give rise to and raise interest in social audio. So part talk about radio, part conference call, part house party. Clubhouse is a social networking app based on audio chat. However, Clubhouse, which launched last year, has launched to a lot of hype, but it's really struggled to sustain growth. It peaked earlier this year, but has struggled to sort of keep up that acquisition rate. It was had a very clever acquisition tactic, which was invite only, which created a lot of that hype, but it just hasn't been sustained. And we think that's potentially because social audio is really a feature and not a feature that can sustain a whole new platform that needs to build an audience of its own. And Kara Swisher, the great tech journalist, known for sort of fame of her podcast with Scott Galloway, Pivot, says that Clubhouse feels more like a feature than a platform. So Clubhouse may not be the next big thing, but we do think social audio is gearing up to be mainstream as a feature and very interesting. And so much so, nearly all the mainstream platforms are turning this feature on with their platform. So Twitter has already launched Twitter Spaces. Discord is the #1 audio streaming channel to connect gamers when they're gaming together. LinkedIn is gearing up to launch an audio chat rooms, and Facebook has launched live audio rooms. Fireside is a new app that's set to launch. So you can see there's a lot of interest from both new and mainstream platforms for turning this feature on. And we think it's potentially very interesting for brands in terms of thinking about new ways to engage your audience. And we're going to talk about 3 sort of ways in which we think it could be leveraged. Number 1, a great way to activate your influencer relationships. Number 2, a good way to facilitate amplification of thought leadership. And number 3, community engagement. So engaging directly with your consumers or other community groups that you may have. I'm going to talk about 3 examples that bring each one of those to life. So first up, collaborating with influencers to connect with your audience. This is an example, and they're all on Clubhouse because obviously that is the pioneering app in this social audio space. So NARS Cosmetics worked with a range of different beauty influencers to host a virtual 3-day event on Clubhouse that explored how to take better care of your skin by making more informed makeup choices. And you can see there, it was a really great way for audiences to connect directly with influencers who they're obviously very interested in, and for the brand to facilitate that unique experience and conversation, and a really great branded experience for them to bring to life. Number 2, a great example of using social audio to promote thought leadership. So Martel Cognac hosted a series of bold conversations on Clubhouse, supporting the brand's Black History Month activities with progressive discussions about female entrepreneurs in the Black community. And the 3rd example here is really an example of that opportunity to bring open discussion to life with your own community, the brand's own community. So RBI, the restaurant group behind Burger King plus others, runs open kitchen discussions on Clubhouse, which enables them, the general public or investors, to speak directly to management about the group's quarterly earnings. But it could, of course, also be about talking to the organization about food quality or employee relations or whatever that might be that you want to conduct a conversation about directly with your audience. It can either be to create a dialogue, you could be setting records straight, but it could also be used to gather information and insight, conduct consumer research. All of those things are possible via social audio. So in summary, social audio's combination of social media, digital audio, virtual events, and conversations make it a unique way to engage consumers. The use cases are highly varied, so marketers can effectively add social audio to their comms plan in a number of ways. Brands don't need to create a presence on a new channel, as many of the major platforms are rolling out social audio, so you can access your existing audience via this feature. And finally, social buzz is a key indicator of corporate value. So you may recall back in 2018 when Kylie Jenner posted about the demise of Snap, which started a new era of the power of social buzz to really move markets. So she tweeted, "So does anyone not open Snapchat anymore? Or is it just me? This is so sad." And what ensued was a $13 billion drop in Snap's share price almost overnight. Another example more recently this year with Peloton, they did swiftly respond to a social and PR crisis where their share price did drop after, sadly, a child died following an injury on one of their treadmills, because I think they recognized that the brand damage was going to escalate. It was being amplified on social media, and they moved to recall the product rapidly. And finally, this is an interesting one, an example of a Coke PR fiasco, which was actually fake news, but it showed how our social has the power to really escalate the impact of some of these fake news stories, or it could be real news. But what happened was Cristiano Ronaldo waved away a Coke at a press conference in favor of water. And the story that came out was that it caused a $5 billion drop in Coke's value. But the reality was, and that story whipped around the world because obviously it sounds like a good headline in terms of being sensational. But their share price drop actually occurred before the conference even took place. So it just demonstrates what can happen when news breaks and is shareable on the internet. More recently, you may be familiar with this Wall Street bets movement, which saw Redditors dramatically moving financial markets. In the case of GameStop, which is a sort of gaming retailer in the US, Redditors on Wall Street bets decided to get behind GameStop and support it and really talk up the value of the share price. And it prompted a lot of people to start getting involved in investing and meant their share price sort of shot up. And as a result, the social's power to move markets has led to a new fund containing only stocks with positive buzz launching. So the Buzz Index aggregates content related to investment from Twitter, blogs, forums, and news articles. And the content is analysed using AI to identify trends and changing sentiment, which can affect market-based outcomes. The portfolio is then formed by the 75 US large cap stocks with the highest degree of positive investor sentiment and bullish perception. And this is the top 10 of the Buzz Fund Index, which tracks a unique portfolio. So you can see Tesla sitting right alongside GameStop there. So they're simply creating a fund that is made up of brands that have positive sentiment. And this fund, you can see, has outperformed the market since the Wall Street Bet movement began. So the top blue line is the Buzz Fund, tracking well ahead of the S&P 500. So in summary, you know, word of mouth and corporate reputation has always been important, but social buzz is now a key driver of it. It can increasingly be a significant driver or indicator of corporate value, especially for businesses in emerging and volatile industries. And so proactively managing these discussions amongst vocal communities should be a priority, and brands should have appropriate social listening in place to give them visibility of buzz-driven threats or opportunities. You know, we know from the amount of community management that we do that one of the most richest sources of consumer insight is listening to your community via community management, and it can surface all sorts of insights and ideas for brands. You just need to tune in and listen to it. So that's the 6 key trends we wanted to cover today. Hopefully you've learned something, found it interesting. They are: gaming is the next frontier in social. Number 2, we're seeing a new era of social commerce and something that brands should really be thinking about how they can get involved in. TikTok is now a mainstream channel, but it's a unique one. The content trend, edutainment, is a really great way to engage Gen Z. The rise of social audio and other opportunities there to connect with your audience in a unique way. And finally, social buzz, a key indicator of corporate value. So that is all we had today. We're going to open up to any questions that you might have. Before I do, I just want to mention, if you don't already follow our blog, you may want to. Every week, at least, we publish updates and news about all things going on social media. Thank you for joining. Any questions that anyone might have? So a question from Tani Smith: is there any data about how the 41% of TikTokers users in age bracket 18 to 24 translates from a digital retail perspective? There will be. It's a good question. Tani, let us have a dig and we will come back to you on that. There's nothing off the top of my head. Retail in TikTok is still relatively new. They've got some really great features, including live and that integration with Shopify, but it hasn't rolled out everywhere. But we'll have a look at it and see if we've got anything we can share with you. Could we get the QR code up again, please? Yes, absolutely. There it is. Chris Ledland asks, are there any great brands in Australia doing audio chat rooms? We haven't seen any, Chris. In fact, those examples we pulled out were not easy to find. I think one of the reasons for this is that Clubhouse, as you know, is live and not recorded. And so one of the things to consider when you're creating events, I think, in social audio is it can be a lot of work to create the content and facilitate those conversations and those virtual events. And so they don't seem to have much of a digital footprint, I would say. But again, we'll have a look out for any, and I'll share if we find any great examples. And from Nicole, great to see you. Social commerce, do influencers usually host, and this links back to retailers, or how is this generally managed? Yeah, so what we're seeing really rising is that influencers are promoting products on their own channels and using affiliate links to sell directly from their own channels, whatever that product might be. I mentioned earlier, Like to Know is a really great platform for connecting brands and influencers. And that means that they agree commissions for direct selling that all runs through that platform. And those platforms are usually the best way to manage those direct selling relationships. I hope that answers your question. But if you want to know more, please feel free to get in touch. Don't think there's any more questions coming through. Thank you. Oh, we have one from Michael. Do we know any data regarding purchase consideration from Twitch viewers versus standard IG Live? No, we don't have that data. It's an interesting question. Twitch has obviously not got the same sort of social selling mechanisms that some of the other platforms do. So it's probably not something that's been dug into very much. It's a good question, Mike. Again, we'll have a dig around. We'll come back to all of you guys with these questions that you've asked, if we can find anything further. Okay, thanks very much for joining today. Really appreciate your time. Hopefully you've enjoyed the presentation. If you'd like a copy, we're happy to share, and we'll follow up with those questions to provide any more detail that we might have. Great to see you all, and hope you're all surviving lockdown. Thanks.